because I believe there are some policies or political kickbacks to the governor, to many of the Democrats. They don't want, the Public Service Commission does not want the nuclear plants built because that will reduce their access to the taxpayer funds. That's just.
We might need a couple of days of blackout in Baltimore and Howard County, Baltimore City, because maybe, just maybe, it'll be enough for Democrats to look at who their legislators are and make a better decision. Because
we are here in Maryland, Baltimore, Maryland, and this is ground zero for Democrats galore. And you're not going to believe what they're doing now. So Maryland's energy grid is on the brink, folks. We all have received notifications today that we may experience rolling blackouts within the next several days. And it's not just Baltimore. I think it's surrounding counties, surrounding Baltimore City. And guess why? The left's green energy gamble and anti-fossil fuel agenda are colliding with reality. And guess who's paying the price? Regular Marylanders.
The problem is that, we're suffering from progressive orthodoxies in Annapolis, where all the lawmakers and legislators, they have very strong hatred for the conventional methods of energy, whether it's fossil fuels, coal-fired plants, and unfortunately, they're also bought and paid for by special interest groups like the Sierra Club. That's why, in tandem, they worked very well together to actually close down reliable mechanisms of energy before, for example, the Brandon Shores, which is open right now technically, unfortunately was also seeing an imminent closure before. But there's also been other power plants that have been closed here in Maryland. And just as you articulated earlier today, BGE put out this warning to a lot of Marylanders saying, hey guys, you guys might have to conserve some of your energy because rolling blackouts are actually going to happen. And as a matter of fact, I believe over 4,000 households in Howard County also saw blackouts too as well. Wow. And it's unconscionable. I mean, the progressives are going to take us back to the Stone Ages with this Green New Deal dream or whatever they call it that is unsustainable and unreliable. So what we need in Maryland is updated and upgraded infrastructure, and we need more power plants to actually come back online here in Maryland so we could bring down the cost too. That's another thing that just the price just in general is increased exponentially because there's an increase in demand with very low supply too. So these are the issues that we're facing here in Maryland. And if we don't get it squared away, these rolling blackouts will continue, unfortunately.
My goodness. So, and like you mentioned, we do have this soaring demand. We've got hotter summers. We've got all these EV and electrification mandates that the Maryland General Assembly and actually Biden's federal government have pushed on to us. And again, this Maryland General Assembly has accelerated fossil fuel retirements. Yes. And so this is what's caused this. Nicole, what are your thoughts as what's going on here?
Well, listen, I'm lucky enough to live close to Calvert Cliffs, right? So we have a power plant here, but we too were facing some energy dependency problems when they were planning to reduce Wagner Unit 4 in Anne Arundel County, which powers a great amount of Southern Maryland and that part of Maryland. We literally had to have our legislators go to the federal government, and the Department or Secretary of Energy stepped in and said, no, this plant can run at full capacity as needed up until October, and then we'll revisit the energy needs for this particular area. This all came from a lawsuit with the Sierra Club and how our legislators piggybacked with that deep pocket and said, rolling brownouts, it'll be okay as long as we're following California's blueprint for this green energy deal. Our state has enough resources to make enough power so that we don't ever have to consider blackouts, brownouts, rolling or accidental for that matter. But Governor Moore has put hamstrings on what our power plants can do. That one unit I was talking about, Unit 4, the Wagner, was only allowed to make 483 hours worth of power in a year.
Yeah.
In 1 year. And then that was reduced to 80 hours.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know about you, but here in Southern Maryland, we like having lights on. We don't have street lights, but people have lights on the inside of their house. And when I flip the switches in American, I fully expect lights to come on. It is unconscionable that these very progressive, regressive people are sending us back to the Stone Age. We've got to do better. We've got to do better.
Wow. So I want to ask you just again, Fitzgerald, before I get the other ladies on. Mm-hmm. So do you really think this is brought on by a large portion by policy, by these progressive policies?
Yeah, absolutely. Since 2023, our energy prices have increased by 1,000%. And this is because of pieces of legislation like the Climate Solutions Act of 2022, which is the objective ultimately is to achieve net zero by 2040, which is just not quite possible. No. Or our participation in RGGI, which essentially says, it kind of piggybacks on the Climate Solutions Act of 2022, where we want to meet this net zero CO2 emissions too also. And then we also have something called Empower, which actually punishes ratepayers for using their energy to also, and it operates as a mechanism to actually get people to conserve and roll back their energy usage too, ultimately. So this is totally the policy and the progressive orthodoxy that we're seeing in Annapolis that delivered these rolling blackouts, aged infrastructure, and the lack of power plants to meet the demand needed in the supply. Another thing that's crushing us is that we have a lot of data centers that are being erected on our PJM grid too. And these data centers, they need immense levels of energy also to power them. And we just don't create enough. As a matter of fact, I remember a state senator from Pennsylvania actually went on to started complaining and said, you guys in Maryland, you guys need to pull your own weight here. Mm-hmm. You guys are on our operating grid, and the rest of us, we're doing our job. We're providing energy mechanisms, and you guys are completely relying on this green new scam energy deal or whatever you want to call it. And we got called out on it. And that's why you're seeing Governor Wes Moore, or Tax Moore, I should say, has an approval rating that's down to 50% and down 14 points, because Marylanders are sick and tired of the increased costs, increased energy costs, high taxes, et cetera, and those kind of things.
Wow. Yeah. Shelley, jump in here. What are your thoughts?
Hi, Fitzgerald. Thanks for being back with us. Look, this is my thought. Well, we don't have more power plants being built. As a matter of fact, we have many that are down, if you will. We also have our governor gets to appoint people to the Public Service Commission, I think it is. So this is my question. How loosely or tightly related are these appointments and the reduction of nuclear plants, which is really what we need? How tightly is that related to the political kickbacks? Because I believe there are some policies or political kickbacks to the governor, to many of the Democrats. They don't want, the Public Service Commission does not want the nuclear plants built because that will reduce their access to the taxpayer funds. That's just my thinking, but help me out here.
No, you actually couldn't have said it any better. The Senate president of the legislature, as everyone in Annapolis is a gentleman's politician, they're part-time workers. And they also have jobs where they may work in law offices or nonprofits. But the Senate president, he also works for a green energy firm too also. So so you are absolutely right and spot on there right now. There is also a personal incentive too also for the state of Maryland to not go to our conventional methods of energy or nuclear energy too also. Another thing that people say about nuclear energy, why we shouldn't go there, they're saying the small modular reactors, they're going to take way too long for them to actually be effectual, and then we could actually start using that energy. But at some point, we actually have to start investing in a nuclear energy in a very robust way, and look at our politicians and say, hey guys, put your own personal bottom line to the side and do what's best for your constituents. So you couldn't have said it any better, Shelley.
Yeah. Yana, what are your thoughts on this or questions for Fitzgerald?
Well, my thoughts, first of all, yes, I know what's going on because I live near Baltimore, and my job is in Baltimore County, and we actually got a message that we shouldn't be on campus on Wednesday because the power will be out because of this situation. So
we're already anticipating it.
right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And like I was saying, when we're talking about the crime situation, and I was saying that Marxists are experimenting with us. Well, they're also experimenting with us on this, with the whole Green New Deal and these progressive policies. It's an experiment. They do not know what is going to happen, if they're going to shut down the power plants or not have them work at full capacity. And so we are just being tested on, and these are the results. We might not have power. And at this time when it's like super hot outside, like I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah. No. I mean, what you're saying is exactly correct. This is an experiment, essentially, unfortunately. And once the experiment goes wrong, now we have leaders in elected office that aren't humble enough to say, I'm sorry, guys, we made a mistake and we need a reverse course. Now what they're doing, they're shifting blame. After the experiment went wrong and went bad, now they're saying, oh, it's PJM's auctioning market process that's predatory. You know, they're trying to maximize profits. You know, this is wrong. We want to write a letter. We want to demand the FERC Commission to tighten regulations on PJM and their auction. And it's like, guys, just step up and say, hey, Marylanders, we made a mistake. We were misguided. We didn't do the right thing. Now we're going to go back to the conventional methods of energy that work, sustainable, effectual, and cost-effective too, ultimately. You know, the biggest thing to me that pops out the most is that in the 21st century, in a state with a $67 billion, people will, just as Nicole said earlier, will not be able to expect for the lights to come on when they flick up the switch. It's insane. Like it could have said it any better. It's like we're going back to the Stone Ages, unfortunately.
Yeah, I have one more quick question, Fitzgerald. From my understanding, again, I am not a nuclear scientist, but from my understanding, nuclear power has some of the lowest emissions anyway, even compared to green energy. Is that correct, or
it's very clean. It's very clean, but the reason why people are a little bit hesitant for it is because one, it kind of does take a little bit a long time for the small modular reactors, and then two, the aspect of it being a bomb too, potentially. This is the thing, like in Iran. You know, Iran, they had these nuclear enrichment facilities, and the deal was that you guys can use that to provide for energy, but they just kept enriching it more and more and more to create a bomb.
Right.
So yeah, that's
it works in Europe. I think France and other countries have nuclear power for a huge percentage of their energy.
Yeah, that. But
listen,
go ahead. No, please go, Nicole.
Listen, it works here in Maryland. Calvert Cliffs is a nuclear plant. Make no mistake. But what it doesn't do is put money in our legislators' pockets. But hear me on this. This may be something we might need a couple of days of blackout in Baltimore and Howard County, Baltimore City, because maybe, just maybe, it'll be enough for Democrats to look at who their legislators are and make a better decision. Because this name ID only, oh, I knew him when I went to high school, is the reason why I voted for him. When you're sitting in your house sweating in KJ's favorite summertime heat, and you can't open your refrigerator, and your kids don't have any light, and the iPads don't work, what are you going to do? And if you have an EV, oh yeah, by the way, there's really nothing you can do, nowhere to charge that vehicle. Then what are you going to do? Will you then consider stopping voting for the same Democrat BS over and over again? Maybe a few nights in the dark is what they need.
Yeah, I doubt it. I mean, but unfortunately, it will be as the left likes to talk, the impoverished people, you know, people who don't have the means to drive over to Pennsylvania, maybe to a hotel a night or two, don't have backup generators. You know, these are the people that are going to be affected harshly. You know, and they're the ones probably that the Democrats prey on to vote their way. Yeah. So we